I, 34-year-old female, and my husband, 35-year-old male, have been married for 6 years now. We met when we were children and grew up together in a small town. Everybody always knew that we were going to end up together. I have a hobby of doing puzzles, and I would often encourage my husband to join me, expressing that it would make me happy if he took an interest in what I enjoy doing. However, when I told my husband this, he just laughed and said he has better things to do than care home activities. The comment always rubbed me the wrong way, but I know my husband can be insensitive to these things, so I never commented further on it. My husband and I are very different. While he prefers to go out hiking or meet up with friends in his spare time, I would rather stay at home and read a book, cook, or do puzzles. While I wouldn't call myself introverted, my husband often told me I should make a greater effort to socialize more and get out. Recently, this topic has been appearing more and more in our arguments. So last week, I asked him why it bothered him so much that I don't like to go out as much as him, and he told me it's a waste of a pretty face. I told him I didn't appreciate that comment, and that he shouldn't have married me if what I did in my spare time was such a problem to him. He scoffed and told me that he thought he shouldn't have married me either. He then left the house and didn't come back until nighttime, when I was already in bed. I have a rather extensive collection of puzzles that I collect and then display in my office room. When we got married, I agreed I would leave them in my office when they were finished, and that he would never find the pieces lying around. He often told me I was filling the house with eyesores, and that he wanted to live in a home, not a children's playhouse. That night after he left, I redid one of my favorite puzzles to seek comfort from its familiarity. It was a gift from a friend who moved away a few years ago. It was a beautiful custom-made puzzle, and it meant the world to me. The picture that the puzzle creates is one of me and my friend at our graduation. It's a big puzzle comprising about 200 plus pieces, so I didn't finish it that day, and I went to bed, leaving the pieces scattered over our dining table. When I woke the next morning to finish the puzzle, it was no longer on the table where I had left it. It wasn't in our bedroom, it wasn't in my office, none of my collection was. I finally went to the kitchen to ask my husband if he'd seen my puzzle collection. He looked at me with a smug little smirk and told me he had to put them all where they belong. I immediately knew that he had thrown them into the trash. It was Friday morning, and that's when the trash was taken away, so I knew I had lost them forever. I didn't waste time shouting at him. I just went to my room and packed my essentials before taking a taxi to my mom's place. He didn't stop me from leaving. He didn't ask where I was going. I told my mom what had happened, and she told me I could stay at her place for however long I needed until I figured out what my next steps were going to be. I consulted my friends about the matter, and they told me that my husband had been asking everyone where I was and had been telling them to keep their silence about his inquiries. They advised me to start looking into divorce with my husband, and if that wasn't an option I was willing to take, then we should try marriage counseling. My husband realized I was serious, so he started spamming my phone with calls and messages, telling me I was being rash and unreasonable, and that no normal human should care that much about a glorified piece of plastic. I have not yet replied to any of his messages. Some of my friends also couldn't understand why the puzzles hold such value to me, but for me, that has just given me more of an incentive to remove him from my life permanently. 2 days ago, I told him I was going to mourn those puzzles more than I would ever mourn our relationship. Many people are telling me I'm making a mistake in seeking a divorce so quickly and that I'll regret my decision. But this whole experience has taught me that I hate my husband and that I was right to cheat on him with my friend who moved away. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I cheated at the very beginning of our relationship when I was about 22 years old. We were on a break, so I took this to mean we could see other people, but he made sure to bring it up every time we argued. The final statement should have been, I've finally realized I wasn't in the wrong, because even he slept with other women while on this break, and he made that abundantly clear to me. However, He said that it wasn't okay for me to do it because it tarnishes my worth. Edit 2. I'm so thankful for all the support I've received in this post. You guys really helped me make a decision on what my next actions should be. Despite how my post portrays him, I don't believe my husband to be an hurtful man. The post is not an overview of our marriage, just one specific day that happened to be a breaking point for me. A lot of people have said that my husband and I don't seem to be compatible, and I have also come to realize this. I think we worked better as friends than as a married couple, and I wish him all the best in life. Secondly, many people have said I stopped posting and replying once the truth came out. My husband throughout our marriage has never once downloaded Reddit, telling me that it's for chronically online nerds. So I think the chances of him downloading Reddit and seeing this post are very slim. It has come to my attention that someone has been messaging people telling them that I was unfaithful throughout our entire marriage, which is very untrue because both my husband and I, to my knowledge, have been loyal to each other for the 6 years we have been married. The person posting in the comments claiming to be my husband is an internet troll and probably found our names by looking at my previous comments and posts, which have now been set to private. Once again, thank you for all the support and advice. I don't know how to express my gratitude. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Lol, it's not the puzzle. He is just trash all around. He is misogynistic, stupid, controlling, and everyone sees it. That's why they are saying divorce. Honey, do yourself a favor and take him out on our next trash day. Don't even attempt conversation without a paper trail. Get a lawyer, get your stuff with family and friends, and leave. Also, you never cheated. You were on a break where he also slept with women. He is just pissed because he thought no one would want you or take interest. Comment 2. You're not leaving him over a puzzle. This is a basic incompatibility. He doesn't accept you as you are. He doesn't respect your differences. Don't tell people you cheated. You didn't. Don't tell people you left because of a puzzle. You didn't. You left because he didn't accept you as an introvert with a puzzle hobby. He denigrated your hobby and your preference for calm indoor activities. You left because you are incompatible. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last post, and wow, things have taken some turns. I've been staying at my mom's place, trying to figure out my next steps, and I've had a lot of time to think about everything that's happened. First off, I want to address the cheating thing. I know it's been a hot topic in the comments, and I've seen a lot of you have strong opinions about it. I want to clarify that it was a one-time thing years ago, and we were on a break. It's not an excuse, but it's the truth. My husband and I both saw other people during that time, but for some reason, he always held it against me more than I did him. Now on to the new developments. After I left, my husband's attempts to reach me became more desperate. He even showed up at my mom's place, which was the last thing I expected from him. He's always been the type to avoid confrontation, but there he was, standing on the doorstep, looking like a mess. He begged me to talk to him, to give him a chance to explain. I agreed, but only in public, at a coffee shop nearby. It was there that he dropped a news on me. He confessed that he had been feeling insecure in our marriage because of how different we were. He thought that by pushing me to be more outgoing, he could make us more alike and therefore more compatible. He also admitted that throwing away my puzzles was a spiteful act. He was angry about our argument and wanted to hurt me in a way that he knew would cut deep. But he didn't expect me to leave over it. He thought I'd get mad, we'd fight, and then we'd make up like we always did. But here's the twist. While we were talking, his phone kept buzzing. He tried to ignore it, but I saw the name on the screen. It was a woman's name, one I didn't recognize. When I asked him about it, he went pale. Turns out, he'd been confiding in a coworker about our problems, and she had been supportive in more ways than one. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All this time, he'd been holding my past mistake over my head, and he was doing the same thing? I couldn't believe it. He tried to explain that it wasn't physical, just emotional, but that didn't make it any better. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and relief. Angry and betrayed because he was a hypocrite, and relieved because now I knew I wasn't the only one who had made mistakes in our marriage. The next few days were a blur. I started the divorce proceedings, which he didn't fight. He knew he had messed up, and I think he also realized that we were better off apart. But the bittersweet part, I found out from a mutual friend that he had kept one puzzle. The custom-made one of me and my friend at our graduation. He had picked it out of the trash and kept it, not knowing its significance to me. When I confronted him about it, he broke down. He said it was the one thing he couldn't bring himself to destroy because he knew it was my favorite. I didn't know what to feel. Here was this man who had hurt me so deeply, showing a glimmer of the person I once loved. It was too late for us, but that small act of kindness made me mourn the good times we had. As for the puzzle, he gave it back to me. I took it, not sure if I would ever put it together again, but grateful to have it back. Husband lies about working on Valentine's Day to dine with the mother we cut off for hurting our baby, but I catch him red-handed and find out he's cheating with his boss's wife. My husband, 31-year-old, told me last night that his boss asked him to pick up an extra shift today because of short staffing. He said, "I'm really sorry I have to work on Valentine's Day." It did bother me, but it is what it is. We don't do anything over the top for Valentine's Day anyways. We just watch movies and cuddle and whatever. But this year is different. We have a 6-month-old daughter, so it did bother me, but I just let it go. His work schedule is from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. He has worked at the same company for 9 years, and his schedule has never changed, and neither has his break time. I want to point this out ahead of time. So my vehicle was at the shop, and it wasn't due to be done until the 16th. But he finished up today and gave me a call around 11, so I walked with my daughter to go collect my vehicle. 1/4 mile, nothing big. After I grab the vehicle, I go to the gas station, which has a small restaurant inside. To my surprise, I see my husband's truck. Now, he works 45 minutes in the opposite direction, so even if it was his lunch break, which it wasn't, he wouldn't have been able to make it to this restaurant. I go inside and find him sitting at the table with his mom. Now, this shouldn't be a big issue, but him and I had just agreed to go no contact with this woman a month ago because she physically slapped my daughter in the face and left a red mark because my daughter, who is again 6 months old, bit down on her arm as she was cutting teeth. So I walked up to the table and asked him how work was going, and he stood up and told me, "I'm sorry, I just wanted to have lunch with my mom for Valentine's Day." So I said, "You want to have lunch with the woman who slapped your infant daughter across your face? Go ahead and have your lunch, but do not come home. Go stay with mommy." There were 2 other couples sitting close by who started shooting daggers at him and his mom, and one of them gasped and said, "OMG," while giving my mother-in-law dirty looks. Supposedly, I didn't see it, but this is what my husband texted me afterwards. He followed me out to my vehicle as I was walking off and said, "It's not like I'm allowing her around our daughter. I shouldn't have even had to lie to you about having lunch with my mother to begin with. All of this is freaking pathetic. And then for you to embarrass me in front of the entire restaurant?" So I said, "I'd be more embarrassed that you're hanging out with a child aggressor, but to each their own," and got in my vehicle and left. I then went on to the joint bank account and froze it after seeing a $400 purchase from his mother's favorite store, an antique shop. So he clearly brought her shopping as well. I turned it off because more than half of that is my money. I work full-time as well and make $9 more an hour than he does. Anyways, I called my friend because I'm just fuming at this point because he made the agreement to go no contact with this woman, and then he ditches me and his daughter on Valentine's Day with a lie about working just to hang out with her. But my friend says I'm being the overdramatic one and that I should have just left it alone and confronted him in private. Am I the idiot? Ida, when she slapped my daughter, I ended up leaving with my baby. She picked a fight with me when I told her to get out, and therefore I left instead because she wasn't listening to me or my husband telling her to leave. He said he called the cops and they took a statement and later stated that it was word of mouth and they weren't pursuing it. I now have my doubts about him ever calling the cops. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This is more than just having lunch with his mom. He had to fill the hours between 9 a.m., leaving home for the 45-minute drive to work, and 9 p.m., including the 45-minute drive home, somehow. So he is continuing to lie to you. Not the idiot. Why would he think he deserves consideration? Comment 2. Not the idiot. You should have slapped the taste out of her mouth for putting her hands on your daughter. Your husband is a lying coward. Why did he specifically pick Valentine's Day? Even if you don't really do anything, why today? Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a busy couple of weeks and I've got a lot to share. After the Valentine's Day incident, things went from bad to worse. I thought catching my husband with his mom after he lied about working was the lowest point. But boy, was I wrong. Remember how I mentioned his work schedule never changes? Well, turns out that wasn't the only thing he'd been lying about. A few days after the confrontation, I was still fuming and decided to do some digging. I remembered the $400 purchase from the antique shop and how out of character it was for him. So, I called the shop pretending to be his assistant, saying he'd lost the receipt and needed a record for his expenses. The owner, thinking she was helping a regular customer, sent me the details. And there it was, a record of not just the $400 purchase, but several others over the past few months, all on days he'd claimed to be working late. I confronted him that evening, armed with the evidence. He tried to brush it off, saying they were just gifts for his mom. But I wasn't buying it. That's when he dropped the bombshell. He'd been seeing someone else, someone from work, and they'd been using the antique shop as a cover for their meetups. The betrayal stung like a slap in the face, and I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. But here's where it gets even crazier. The someone from work? It was his boss's wife. Apparently, they'd struck up a friendship that turned into an affair, and the boss had no idea. My husband had been using his supposed extra shifts as an excuse to spend time with her, and the antique shop was their go-to spot because it was her favorite. I was livid, not just because of the affair, but because he'd involved his mother in his lies. It turned out she'd known about the affair all along and had been covering for him. That's why he'd been so eager to meet her on Valentine's Day, to discuss how to keep their secret safe. The confrontation was explosive. I demanded the truth about everything, and piece by piece, his double life unraveled. He'd been using our joint account to fund his escapades, buying gifts for his mistress and paying for their little outings. And the worst part? He'd been telling her that our marriage was over, that we were just staying together for our daughter's sake. I felt like my whole world had been turned upside down. The man I'd trusted, the father of my child, had been living a lie. And his mother, the woman who'd hurt my daughter, was his accomplice. I didn't waste any time. I took my daughter and moved in with my sister, who'd been a rock through all of this. I couldn't stand to be in the same house as him, knowing what he'd done. I started the process of separating our finances and contacted a lawyer about getting a divorce. As for his boss, I debated whether to tell him about the affair. It wasn't my place to get involved, but I also felt he had a right to know. In the end, I decided to stay out of it. That was their mess to clean up, and I had enough on my plate. The past 2 weeks have been a blur of emotions. I've been trying to keep things as normal as possible for my daughter, but it's hard. I'm angry, hurt, and above all, disappointed. I thought I knew my husband, but it turns out he was a stranger. My friend, the one who'd called me overdramatic, apologized for not taking my side. She'd been shocked by the extent of his deceit and offered her support. It's been a tough lesson in trust and betrayal, but I'm determined to come out of this stronger. My mother-in-law ignores sick baby to snoop through my phone and plot custody with my husband, so I change locks and passwords, and now she's banned from our home while friends rally around me. Long story short, my husband asked his mother to come over today and watch our daughter, 3 months old, so I could take a nap because lately the baby hasn't slept at all, and I'm just exhausted. She's super colicky and throws up in her sleep too. So I'm just up almost always because she has choked on her own vomit before. My husband is a trucker and is currently on a week-long trip away. She agreed to come over for a few hours and even offered to make dinner. I appreciated it so much. She got here at 2:30 p.m. I got the baby down for a nap and took a quick shower and then went in to take a nap. Well, I woke up at 4 p.m. to my daughter screaming. I immediately rushed out of bed and found her still in her crib, diaper not changed, and she had been crying for a while, by the looks of things. I went into the living room and didn't see my mother-in-law anywhere. So I went to my bedroom to grab my phone and realized it wasn't on the charger where I left it. The baby monitor was also unplugged from my wall, which would explain why I didn't hear my daughter at first. Well, I went back into the kitchen and happened to see my mother-in-law through the window on the back porch, talking on the phone. So I go out and she's literally talking on my phone. So I interrupt her and ask why she has my cell phone and how long she had left my daughter screaming in the other room when she was supposed to be watching her, and asked why my monitor had been unplugged. She goes, "Well, I heard your phone ringing and it was my son, so I answered it and took it outside so I wouldn't wake you. And I unplugged the monitor so the baby wouldn't wake you if she did start crying." She wasn't crying when I walked outside. I asked her how long she had been on my phone outside, and she looks at the time of the call and says, 37 minutes. I immediately told her to get the frick out. She starts to protest, and I simply tell her to get the frick out again, and that my daughter had very obviously been screaming for a while. Her eyes were puffy, and when I picked her up, she was hyperventilating and sweating. She had been crying for at least 10 minutes, if not longer. She started in with the whole, "It's not going to hurt a baby to cry." I didn't hear her, or I would have gone in to get her talk. So I said, "Yeah, but instead you decided to steal my phone and go talk to my husband for 40 minutes and fail to do the task you came here for. Leave." She ends up leaving. But now my husband is mad at me because she didn't even have to come help. And you made her feel freaking stupid because she didn't grab the baby as soon as she started crying. Don't be surprised if she never helps again. I don't think I'm the AH, but my husband is making me feel absolutely insane here. Am I the idiot? Etta, whether or not the baby will be fine after crying for 10 minutes isn't the problem. The problem was that she was at my house for an hour and a half, 20 minutes of which I was awake. And out of that time, she spent 40 minutes outside on my cell phone instead of watching the baby like she was supposed to. She did not check on my daughter at all for 40 minutes, knowing she's colicky and has a history of spitting up in her sleep and unplugging my monitor so I couldn't even hear her. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You're the parent and you set the rules. I would not leave a 3-month-old unwatched for so long, and the only way they have to communicate something is wrong is through crying. Ignoring a child that is upset isn't going to make them cry less. It's going to teach them that they can't trust you and need to complain more. Comment 2. Your husband needs to wise up quickly and realize whose side to be on. He needs to support you in this because mother-in-law is completely in the wrong, and so is he. And he's behaving pathetically, defending her instead of you. Not the idiot, and I would not let this go. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last post about the incident with my mother-in-law, and I've got an update for you all. Buckle up, because things have taken a turn for the worse. After the whole fiasco with my mother-in-law, things between my husband and me were tense. He's always been a mama's boy, but I never realized just how deep that went until now. We've been together for 6 years, and I thought we had a solid relationship, but this past week has shown me a side of him I never knew existed. So my husband came back from his trucking trip 2 days after the incident. He was still upset with me for kicking his mom out, and we had a huge argument about it. He kept saying that I overreacted and that his mom was just trying to help. I reminded him about our daughter's colic and how dangerous it could be if she chokes on her vomit while crying. He just brushed it off, saying I was being dramatic. But here's where the betrayal comes in. I found out that during the 40 minutes my mother-in-law was on my phone, she wasn't just talking to my husband. She was going through my messages and emails. I only discovered this because I noticed some of my emails had been marked as read when I hadn't checked them yet. I confronted her about it, and she tried to deny it at first. But then she admitted that she was looking for evidence that I was an unfit mother. She said my husband had doubts about my parenting because of how tired I've been lately, and they were planning to use whatever she found against me if we ever got into a custody battle. I was shocked. My own husband, the man I trusted with my heart and our family, was plotting against me behind my back. I couldn't believe it. I thought back to all the times he'd been supportive, or so I thought, during my pregnancy and the first few months of our daughter's life. But now it seemed like it was all a facade. I remembered how he'd always take his mother's side in any disagreement, no matter how small. But I never thought he'd go this far. I confronted my husband about it, and it was the most intense confrontation we've ever had. He tried to justify his actions by saying he was just looking out for our daughter's best interests. But how could betraying my trust and invading my privacy be in anyone's best interest? The argument got heated, and he finally admitted that he had been feeling neglected since our daughter was born. He felt like all my attention was on her and that I didn't have time for him anymore. I was floored. I had been running on fumes, trying to take care of a colicky baby on my own while he was away for work, and this was how he felt. I told him that if he had issues, he should have come to me directly instead of sneaking around with his mother. It was a low blow, and it hurt more than I can describe. We've been sleeping in separate rooms since that night, and I've been trying to figure out what to do next. In the meantime, I've changed all my passwords and put a lock on my phone. I can't trust either of them anymore, and it's heartbreaking. My mother-in-law hasn't been back to the house since I kicked her out, and I've made it clear to my husband that she's not welcome here until we sort things out. I've been leaning on my friends for support, and they've been amazing. They've been helping me with the baby and making sure I get some rest. I don't know what I would do without them. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.